Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and have a good day everybody. So today we continue to chapter 2. We learn about the leaf structure and function. So in this chapter we will focus to the 5 subtopic. Okay, the first one we learn about the structure of a leaf. Second, main organ for gases exchange. Third, main organ for transpiration. Number 4, the main organ for photosynthesis. And the last one, compensation point. Okay, so in this topic, make sure after you learn this topic, right, there are important concept that you must achieve. The first one, know the external structure of leaf and the internal structure of the leaf lamina. Second, the necessity of gaseous exchange in plant. The mechanism of stomatal opening and closing. The effect of lack of water in plant on stomata opening and closing, the necessity of transpiration in plant, the environmental factor that affect the rate of transpiration, the necessity of photosynthesis in plant, relationship or the adaptation of the internal structure of a leaf to photosynthesis, chloroplast structure, and then able to know the relationship between the light dependent and light independent reaction, chemical equation to represent the process of photosynthesis, right? And then the environmental factor that affect the rate of photosynthesis, the effect of light intensity and the color of light on the rates of photosynthesis, compensation point, and the last one, able to give the comparison between photosynthesis and cellular respiration in plant. So this is the important things or important concept that you must achieve after you learn this topic. Alright everybody, so we go to the first slide. Okay, so we learn about the structure of leaf. So the main organ of a plant which is carry out photosynthesis is leaf. So the leaf structure can be divided into two parts, which are external structure luaran, consists of lamina and petiole. Lamina means daun, helaian daun, and petiole means leaf stalk ataupun tangkai daun. And then another one is internal structure. Internal structure means structure dalaman daun itu. Okay, consists of cuticle, upper epidermis, lower epidermis, palisade mesophyll, spongy mesophyll, and vascular bundle. Alright, so now we go to the more detail about the external structure of a leaf. Alright, so lamina. Actually, lamina have two characteristics. The first characteristic is lamina is flat to provide a wide surface in order to expose the cell which is containing a bundle of chloroplast to absorb the maximum amount of sunlight. And then the second characteristic of lamina have a thin and smooth, which is to allow gases involved in photosynthesis to diffuse efficiently in the leaf. Right, so for lamina, there are two characteristics and two functions. So each characteristic has their own function. Okay, and then for the petiole or leaf stalk, actually it's a leaf stalk connected the lamina to the stem of the plant sebagai penyambung di antara batang dan daun. So leaf stalk. And then leaf stalk also stretch out into the lamina, produce a network of middle vein to support the lamina. So daripada tangkai daun ini, dia akan pecah menjadi urat-urat daun yang mana untuk support daun tersebut, lamina. Okay. Alright, so now we go to the internal structure of leaf. Okay, actually leaf of the plant will grow without overlapping to enable them to receive optimal light to carry out photosynthesis. So this arrangement we call as the leaf mosaic. So this is the picture how the leaf arrange itself in the arrangement of leaf mosaic to make sure all the leaf get the optimum sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. Okay, and then this one is the internal structure of lamina. Lamina daun, bila kita potong daun tersebut, inilah struktur dalaman daun, which is the upper epidermis, and then palisade mesophyll, vertically arrangement, closely each other. Okay, palisade mesophyll, which is have a lot of chloroplast, okay, to carry out photosynthesis. And then under palisade mesophyll is spongy mesophyll, closely arranged, loosely arranged. And then the lower epidermis, and then urat daun consists of vascular bundle, which consists of xylem and phloem. And then at the lower epidermis, they have a gut cell to control opening and closing of stomata for gases exchange. Alright, so now we go one by one about the internal structure of leaf. Okay, so starting from the upper epidermis, okay. Alright, so on the upper epidermis, they have a cuticle. Okay, which is the characteristic of cuticle is the waxy, waterproof epidermis cover the upper and lower part of leaf. So cuticle they have on the upper epidermis and also in the lower epidermis. Okay, and then second characteristic of the cuticle is the transparent layer which cover the upper and lower part of the leaf. Actually, this is to allow the sunlight to pass through. Okay, so lapisan yang Leucina, so nak bagi cahaya matahari banyak masuk ke dalam daun untuk buat photosynthesis. So they have two characteristic of cuticle with their own function. Alright, and then upper epidermis. Okay, so actually upper epidermis located on the upper surface of the leaf, which is under the cuticle layer. Okay, so at the upper epidermis, they don't have any chloroplast. Okay, no chloroplast because actually it will want to allow more sunlight to pass through to the mesophyll, palisade mesophyll. That's why at the upper epidermis they don't have any chloroplast. And then the third characteristic of upper epidermis is transparent to allow more sunlight penetrate to pass through it. So there is a three characteristic of upper epidermis. Okay, and then under the upper epidermis, there is a palisade mesophyll cell. As you can see, palisade mesophyll cell arranged vertically and closely packed, disusun secara tegak-tegak dan rapat-rapat. Actually dia sebenarnya untuk receive maximum light exposure. Nak bagi banyak cahaya matahari masuk dalam palisade mesophyll sebab dalam palisade mesophyll ni banyak chloroplast. Okey, yang kedua, contain many chloroplast site for photosynthesis. Itu dia punya function palisade mesophyll. Okay, dia nak increase the surface area to absorb more sunlight. That's why arranged vertically and closely packed. Okay, and then the next one is lower epidermis. Okay, lower epidermis located at the lower surface of the leaf. Lower surface of the leaf, which is consists of stomata. Each stomata is guarded by a pair of gut cells. So the function is to control the opening and closing of stomata. So lower epidermis, it have a gut cell and stomata. Alright, and then next one is spongy mesophyll. Okay, don't forget about spongy mesophyll. This is a spongy mesophyll under the palisade mesophyll. Okay, the structure is irregular shape. Bentuk tidak tetap. Okay, tak seperti mesophyll palisade tadi, bentuk dia tetap. Tapi spongy bentuk dia tidak tetap. And then the function is to increase the internal surface area for gases exchange. Okay, and then arrange loosely and have many intracellular space. Disusun secara longgar, tidak tidak rapat-rapat untuk bagi banyak ruang udara. Okay, so the function of spongy mesophyll loosely arranged because to ease carbon dioxide and water absorption through the leaf to the mesophyll, palisade mesophyll cell during photosynthesis. And then at this part, which is spongy mesophyll, it have less number of chloroplast than palisade mesophyll. Dia masih ada chloroplast tapi tidak terlalu banyak seperti mesophyll palisade tadi. Okay. Alright, kemudian vascular bundle. Vascular bundle ni di mana? Dalam urat daun. Dalam petiole, dalam urat daun. Which is consist of xylem. Yang mana xylem is lignified and thickened. Lignified thickened to transport water and mineral salt and also at the same time provide mechanical support and strength to the plant. And then phloem transport organic substance produced by the photosynthesis. This is the structure of vascular bundle. Right. The purple one is phloem. The green one, the green one is xylem. Alright. So the arrangement of the xylem and phloem in the eudicot and monocot stem is different. Okay. Alright, so now we go to the 2.2, which is the main organ for gases exchange. So, in this subtopic, first of all, we must know the necessity of gases exchange in plant. Okay, first, plant need to synthesize their own food through photosynthesis. And then the second, plant need to exchange gases and absorb light. And then the third one, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between plant and the surrounding occur through stomata. Okay, this is the structure of stomata. Okay, right. Liang stomata yang ni lah. Okay, yang buka tutup ni stomata tu adalah gut cell. Okay, stomata. The pore located on the lower epidermis of the leaf. Jadi stomata ni dia ada bawah permukaan daun. Okey, kalau dia duduk atas permukaan daun banyak air akan hilang. Jadi dia akan kehilangan air banyak boleh menyebabkan daun itu layu, pokok itu layu. That's why stomata ni dijadikan di bawah permukaan daun. Guarded by a pair of gut cells that control the opening and closing of the stomata by changing their shape. Buka dan tutupnya stomata ni dikawal oleh gut cell. Besar mana gut cell tu bukakan stomata tersebut ataupun tutup stomata tersebut. And then gut cell also contain chloroplast to carry out photosynthesis. So gut cell juga ada chloroplast, maka dia boleh buat photosynthesis. Okay, so now the mechanism of stomata opening and closing depends kepada condition of the gut cell, whether it turgid or flaccid. Jadi buka dan tutupnya stomata itu dikawal oleh keadaan gut cell. Sama ada gut cell itu dalam keadaan segah ataupun dalam keadaan flaccid. Dan the condition of gut cell ni pula depends on the potassium ion uptake by the cell or the sucrose concentration in the set of the gut cell. Jadi condition keadaan buka keadaan gut cell ni sama ada turgid atau flaccid bergantung pula kepada potassium ion uptake daripada sel dan juga sucrose concentration. Sucrose concentration datang daripada mana? Datang daripada produk dia adalah produk photosynthesis. Okey, jom kita tengok satu persatu. The first one, uptake of potassium ion by the gut cell. Okay, accumulation or elimination of potassium in the gut cell change the solute potential. Okay, this increase and decrease the water potential in the gut cell. And then water is diffused out or into the gut cell is through osmosis. And then this condition determine whether the gut cell are turgid or flaccid. Manakala untuk sucrose concentration in the gut cell during daytime, waktu siang, or in the presence of light ataupun waktu kehadiran cahaya, proses photosynthesis berlaku Bila proses fotosintesis berlaku, maka dia akan menghasilkan dissolved sugar yang kita panggil sebagai sucrose. Okay? Dan waktu malam ataupun waktu ketiadaan kehadiran cahaya, sugar in the gut cell will be convert into starch. Okay, kita akan pergi lebih detail kepada mekanisme lah. Okay, stomata opening closing ni. Okay, kita tengok yang pertama. Okay, uptake of potassium ion by the gut cell. Bila potassium ion, when the potassium ion enter the gut cell, okay, the solute potential in the gut cell will increase. Jadi potassium ion masuk dalam gut cell, jadi sekarang ni solute potential dalam gut cell tu meningkat. Jadi dalam tu jadi pekat, hypertonic. Okay, so the water potential in the gut cell will decrease. Sebab potassium dah masuk dalam gut cell jadi hypertonic. Jadi apa yang berlaku? The water molecule from the epidermal cell pada sebelahnya, will diffuse into the gut cell by osmosis. Sebab dia dah jadi hypertonic, maka air daripada sel di sebelah gut cell tersebut akan diffuse into the gut cell by osmosis. So now apa yang berlaku? Relate balik yang apa yang kita dah belajar dulu masa form 4. Okay, proses osmosis. So the gut cell become terjik and curve outward. Sebab air dah masuk dalam ni, vakuol akan expand. Bila dia expand, dia kembang, maka apa berlaku? Gut cell become terjik and curve outward. So the stomata will open. Itu ceritanya berkenaan dengan potassium ion. Okey, kemudian pada masa yang sama kita juga kena tengok pada sucrose concentration in the gut cell. In the presence of light, dalam keadaan kehadiran cahaya, photosynthesis will occur. So the concentration of sucrose in the gut cell will become high. Produk photosynthesis meningkatlah, sucrose meningkat. Bila dia buat photosynthesis, sucrose meningkat. So sama juga bila sucrose meningkat di dalam gut cell, dia akan menyebabkan water potential in the gut cell decrease. Air semakin kurang sebab dia semakin pekat. So the water molecule from the epidermal cell will diffuse into the gut cell by osmosis. So the gut cell become terjik and curve outward. So the stomata will open. Okey, ini yang berlaku. Okey, buka dan tutupnya stomata ni. Now kita tengok the mechanism of stomata closing. So bila dia closing? Bila tiada kehadiran cahaya, tak boleh buat fotosintesis. Okay, dan juga uptake of potassium ion. Kita tengok the first one, uptake of potassium ion by the gut cell. Potassium ion will move out from the gut cell. Now, the potassium ion which is inside the gut cell will diffuse out. Dia keluar pada gut cell. So now the solute potential, dan potassium ion keluar, maka solute potential in the gut cell will decrease. So bila dia decrease, the water potential in the gut cell will increase. Sebab solute dah keluar, sekarang air yang tinggal. Jadi air banyak dalam gut cell. The water molecule diffuse out from the gut cell to the epidermal cell by osmosis. And then now the gut cell will become flaccid. Stomata close. Okay, so potassium dah keluar. Potassium itu solute dah keluar, jadi dia jadi hypotonik lah dekat dalam gut cell ni. Jadi air daripada gut cell will diffuse out by osmosis. So gut cell will become flaccid. Okay, and then untuk sucrose concentration in the gut cell, in the absence of light, photosynthesis does not occur. So the concentration of sucrose in the gut cell become low. The water potential in the gut cell will increase. Okay, sekarang sucrose dah kurang sebab tak ada hasil fotosintesis, tak buat fotosintesis, sucrose dah tak ada. Bila sucrose kurang, maka dalam gut cell ni water potential increase but solute potential decrease. So the water potential in the gut cell increase, okay. The water molecule will diffuse out from the gut cell to the epidermal cell by osmosis, and then the gut cell become flaccid. So when the gut cell become flaccid, what happen to stomata? Stomata close. Okay, stomata close. Right, the effect of water deficiency. Ini adalah kesan-kesan kepada tumbuhan bila kekurangan air. Semua orang tahu, semua pernah tengok pokok, semua orang pernah tanam pokok kan? Okay, so when the plant lack of water, the gut cell become flaccid. So the thin and more elastic outer cell wall cause the gut cell to lose rigidity and the stomata to close. Yang ni salah satu efek of water deficiency. Kekurangan air akan menyebabkan gut cell tu tutup, menutup, structure stomata. Okay. Right. And then the effect of water, still lagi, kita tengok yang ni. Right, when the plant obtain enough water, kita siram pokok, pokok cukup air, okay. So when the plant obtain enough water, the gut cell will become turgid because the water from the soil diffuse into the root hair cell and then transfer into the leaf semua kan. Okay, jadi the inner cell wall of the gut cell is thick and less elastic as compared to outer cell wall. So the thick and more elastic outer cell wall cause the gut cell to curve outward and the stomata open. Ini adalah kesan daripada air terhadap bukaan dan tutupnya stomata. Okay, in this subtopic, we want to learn about the main organ for transpiration. Before that, we must know what is transpiration. Transpiration is the process of water loss in form of water vapor through evaporation from the plant to the atmosphere. Okay, so this is the path of the water movement in plant. So root will absorb the water from the soil and then the xylem will transport water upward in the plant to the stem. Then the leaf vein will transport water to the leaf. Then the water will evaporate to the atmosphere through the stomata. So this process called transpiration. Okay, why transpiration required in plant? Kenapa transpiration sangat penting dalam tumbuh-tumbuhan? So actually, plant root will absorb water and resorb from soil. Second, water absorb heat energy from leaf and evaporate as water vapor to give cooling effect to plant. And then to produce a pulling force, okay, that move the water and resorb continuously in the xylem vessel from the roots to all plant cells. Okay, the environmental factor that affect the rate of transpiration. Actually, there are 4 factors that influence the rate of transpiration. So the first factor is light intensity. So the higher the light intensity, the higher the rate of transpiration. So if the light intensity increase, so the rate of transpiration also increase until it become constant. So the rate of transpiration is constant because the relative humidity or temperature or the air movement become a limiting factor. This is the graph shows the rate of transpiration again light intensity. Okay, the second one is temperature. Okay, in this case, actually, when the temperature increase, the kinetic energy of water molecule also increase. So, it will increase the rate of transpiration. Bermaksud, bila suhu tinggi, suhu tadi haba tu akan diserap oleh water molecule di permukaan daun. Jadi, water molecule gain energy, bila dapat tenaga, maka dia akan bergerak dengan laju. So, kinetic energy increase. Maka, waktu pergerakan itu, maka proses kehilangan air itu lagi cepat. Okay, and then the third factor is air movement. Okay, the movement of air will carry away water molecule that have been diffused out from the leaf. So, the faster the air movement, the faster the rate of transpiration. And then the last factor is relative air humidity. Humidity means kelembapan. Okay, kelembapan maksudnya humidity tinggi, udara lembap, sejuk. Kalau humidity rendah bermaksud udara kering, panas. Okay, the lower relative air humidity of the surrounding atmosphere, the faster water vapor escape from the stomata. Therefore, the rate of transpiration will become higher. Okay, this is the 4 factor influence the rate of transpiration. So, the first one, light intensity. Second, temperature. Third one is air movement. And then the fourth is relative air humidity. Okay, the main organ for photosynthesis. Okay, so what is the main organ for photosynthesis? Actually, all part in the plant, which is a green part of plant able to carry out photosynthesis. Tak kira lah daun, batang, yang stem, yang berwarna hijau, ada chlorophyll, boleh buat photosynthesis. Okay, first of all, what is the necessity of photosynthesis in plant? Apa kepentingan photosynthesis pada tumbuh-tumbuhan? So, plant are autotrophic. Autotrophic means organism that produce their own food. Maksudnya dia menghasilkan makanan sendiri. Dia tak makan orang lain untuk dapatkan nutrien. So, dia buat sendiri makanan dia. Okay, itu autotrophic organism. And then the product of photosynthesis, which is glucose, sucrose, is used by the other organism to generate energy through oxidation of food. Contohnya macam kita. Kita tak boleh buat makanan kita sendiri. Kita kena makan benda lain untuk dapat tenaga. Contohnya kita makan ayam. Kan dapat kita makan daging ayam. Ayam tu sebenarnya dia dah makan apa? Dia makan padi ke. Jadi maksudnya kita ni dapat tenaga daripada oxidation makanan tadi. Okay. Right, kemudian yang ketiga, energy produced is needed to carry out living process. Macam-macam lah living process. Contohnya adalah seperti growth and reproduction. Sebenarnya banyak lagi living process. Breathing mechanism, semua-semua tu memerlukan tenaga. Nak perlukan tenaga, kita kena makan. Nak makan, kita kena makanlah. Bermula pada producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer. Kita kaitkan dengan rantaian ataupun food chain, food web. Okay, then photosynthesis. What is the substance ataupun apakah bahan-bahan yang diperlukan untuk menjalankan proses photosynthesis? Okay, first, it needs chlorophyll to absorb light energy. Chlorophyll itu is a green pigment inside the chloroplast. So, yang menyebabkan daun, pokok berwarna hijau adalah kerana kehadiran chlorophyll. Second, it needs carbon dioxide from atmosphere and then water from the soil. And then product of photosynthesis is oxygen, okay, sucrose or glucose, starch, right? So, all part of the plant, which is leaf, young stem, so green part of the plant able to carry out photosynthesis. We go to the history of discovery of photosynthesis. Okay, Hellman. Hellman is a scientist, okay, which is discover about the photosynthesis. Okay, in 1640, Jack Baptista van Hellman, he carried out an experiment to test the idea that plants obtain their food from the soil. So, carry out the experiment. And then after that, in the year 1772, an experiment conducted by the Joseph Priestley shows that plant release oxygen to the atmosphere. Okay, orang yang pertama sekali yang discover about photosynthesis ni adalah Hellman, Van Hellman. Yang mana dia buat conclusion, dia kata plant ni grown by only being water and not from the water of the soil. Apa yang dia buat adalah dia tanam satu anak pokok, sebelum tanam dia timbang anak pokok tu. So, dia timbang anak pokok tu 2.3 kg sahaja. Kemudian dia campurkan dengan tanah 90 kg. Masukkan dalam pot. Kemudian dia tanam, disiram hari-hari disiram selama 5 tahun. After 5 years, apa yang dia buat, dia cabut pokok yang ditanam tadi dan dia timbang semula. So, pokok tu daripada 2.3 kg telah meningkat berat sehingga 77 kg. Manakala tanah pula yang tadi 90 kg Selepas 5 tahun, timbang pun 90 kg juga. Bermaksud dia tak ada perubahan daripada segi tanah. Tak kurang, tak lebih. Tapi anak pokok membesar. Jadi, Van Helmont pun buatlah conclusion. Dia kata, the plant had grown by only being water. Dia kata dengan menyiram air saja, pokok boleh membesar. And not from the water of the soil. Dan dia kata, bukan air daripada tanah, tapi air yang disiram tu yang menyebabkan pokok tu besar. Okey, kemudian eksperimen diteruskan lagi oleh Presley. Presley pula dia buat eksperimen tentang apa yang tumbuhan tu keluarkan. So dia buat eksperimen menggunakan tikus yang mana dia buat dua balang kaca di situ. Okey, satu tikus yang dalamnya tidak ada apa-apa, tikus sahaja. Okay, the rat placed in an inverted glass jar. So after a while, the rat die. Tikus tu mati. Yelah, tak ada oksigen nak bernafas kan. Tikus tu mati. And then, satu lagi, yang mana dia letak tikus berserta dengan pokok. So, bila dia letak kat dalam tu, inverted glass jar tu, apa dia tengok adalah tikus tu hidup. Walaupun tertutup, glass jar tu tertutup, tapi hidup. Jadi apa yang dia buat conclusion, dia mengatakan bahawa plant release oksigen. Sebab oksigen adalah untuk pernafasan. So dia dapati pokok mengeluarkan oksigen. Sebab itulah tikus tu tak mati. Okey, kita pergi kepada the adaptation of the internal structure of the leaf to photosynthesis. Okey, lebih mendalam lagi. Tadi kita dah tengok dah sikit kan. Jadi sekarang kita tengok lebih detail lah. So photosynthesis needs chlorophyll to absorb light energy from the sun. So carbon dioxide is come from the atmosphere and the water come from the soil. So oxygen is released as the byproduct for photosynthesis. So beside the leaf being the main photosynthesis organ, young stem and other green part of the plant also carry out photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is come from the Greek word. Dia datang pada perkataan Greek word. Photo bermaksud light, synthesis maksud arrange together or producing. Jadi proses ini memerlukan cahaya. Okey, kita tengok one by one, part by part of the leaf. Okey, starting dengan upper epidermis and lower epidermis. So as we can see, the characteristic is transparent and waxy cuticle to allow sunlight to penetrate the upper and lower epidermis into pericyte mesophyll. And then second, it have a stomata present in the lower epidermis. In the presence of light, stomata open and allow gases exchange to occur. That means oxygen will diffuse out, carbon dioxide will diffuse into the leaf. And then leaf also have vascular bundle consist of xylem and phloem. Xylem to transport water and mineral salt is come from the root to the leaf, and then phloem will transport sucrose, product by photosynthesis, from the leaf to all part of the plant. Okay, and then it also have the spongy mesophyll, contain a lesser amount of chloroplast compared to pericyte mesophyll, but it contain more space to allow efficient gases exchange during photosynthesis. And then pericyte mesophyll, packly arranged, okay, vertically, packed with chloroplast, have a lot of chloroplast, a bundling of chloroplast to enable sunlight to be absorbed at the maximum rate. And then chloroplast also contain chlorophyll to absorb light energy for photosynthesis. Okay, this is a chloroplast structure. This is a chloroplast structure. So actually you in form 4, you were introduced to the chloroplast organic in the plant cell which function at the site for photosynthesis. So we already learned this structure in form 4, chapter 2. Okay, so chloroplast contain chlorophyll to absorb sunlight and convert it into chemical energy during photosynthesis. And then chloroplast consists of thylakoid. This one is thylakoid, a stack disc-shaped sac containing chlorophyll, thylakoid. Macam 1 shilling ni, satu ni kita panggil thylakoid. Disusun kan, satu keping ni kita panggil thylakoid. Okay, and then consists of grana, Grana ni a stack of tilakot. Banyak-banyak tilakot disusun macam ni, kita panggil dia granum ataupun grana singular plural sajalah. And then stroma ni adalah cytoplasm yang berada dalam kloroplas, kita panggil sebagai stroma. And then lamellae. Lamella ni adalah connection between granum dengan granum. Ni. Okay. So tilakot, this shape set containing chlorophyll, which it contain photosynthetic pigment that trap sunlight. And then the function is light dependent reaction occur in the tilakot. Light independent reaction bermaksud proses yang memerlukan cahaya. Nanti kita akan belajar lebih detail sekejap lagi tentang light dependent reaction. And then granum, this shape stack of tilakot, this arrangement actually to increase the surface area for optimum photosynthesis. Jadi susun begini untuk increase the surface area. And then stroma, colorless fluid surrounding the granum in the chloroplas. So site for light independent. Yang ni pula site for light independent reaction to take place which produce glucose. Okay. Next. Right. So sebenarnya kita boleh nak tengok photosynthetic pigment ni dalam daun. Nak tengok dalam daun tu sebenarnya walaupun kita nampak dia warna hijau, warna green color, sebenarnya dalam green color tu dia ada beberapa warna lagi. Macam mana kita nak tengok? Kita boleh guna kaedah chromatography method. So chromatography method is used to separate the photosynthetic pigment in leaf. Okay, so this technique actually to separating component of the mixture based on the different insolubility of the component in certain solvent. Okay, kita letak kat sini, kita ada kertasnya, okay, filter paper, okay, kita celupkan dalam solvent, okay, kemudian kita titik satu titik chlorophyll dekat tengah-tengah ni, so kita biarkan, gantungkan kertas filter paper tadi, okay. So kita biarkan lama-lama kita akan nampak pelbagai warna yang keluar. So warna-warna ni sebenarnya ada dalam chlorophyll. Warna hijau tu. Okay, ada chlorophyll B, ada chlorophyll A, ada xanthophyll, ada keratin. Okay, so separating component ni kita menggunakan asasnya adalah setiap satu komponen tu mempunyai different solubility. Different solubility component in certain solvent. Okey, kita pergi yang tadi cikgu cakap tadi tentang light dependent reaction. Light dependent reaction means proses yang memerlukan kehadiran cahaya. Okey, tak kiralah cahaya matahari ataupun cahaya lampu. Perlu ada cahaya baru dia buat proses ni. So light dependent reaction ni berlaku di mana? Berlaku di dalam tilakot. Yang ni. Okay, tilakot. And then yang mana? Photosynthetic pigment on the surface of tilakot will absorb light energy. Kemudian light tadi will excite electron in the chlorophyll pigment to a higher level. Okay, and then the excited electron from the chlorophyll will go through a series of electron carriers. The energy from the electron is used to generate energy in the form of ATP, dalam bentuk tenaga ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And then electron are accepted by last electron acceptor, which is NADP+. Okay, NADP+. So NADP+ will combine with hydrogen ion from photolysis of water. So hydrogen ion ni sebenarnya terhasil daripada photolysis of water. Molekul air dipecahkan, okay, menjadi ion hidrogen dan ion hidroksil. Okay, and form the NDPH, which is reducing agent. Then chlorophyll pigment will attract electron from water via the photolysis to become more stable. Photolysis is the process whereby water molecule are broken down to form hydrogen ion and hydroxide ion in the presence of light energy and chlorophyll. So hydroxide ion will lose electron from oxygen and water. But what happened to the hydrogen ion? Kan, hydroxide ion dah habis dah. Dia dah lose electron, dia dah membentuk gas oksigen dan water. Tapi hydrogen ion tadi, apa yang akan berlaku kepadanya? So, daripada tilakot, akan berlaku pula light independent reaction. Yang mana light independent reaction berlaku dalam stroma. Yang tadi cikgu dah bagi tahu, stroma ni adalah cytoplasm yang berada liquid yang berada cytoplasm dalam chloroplast. Jadi hidrogen tadi, 5 carbon organic compound fix carbon dioxide gases to form 6 carbon organic compound. So NADPH tadi kan, hydrogen ion tadi dia dah bergabung dengan NADP membentuk NADPH. So NADPH and ATP from the light dependent reaction will reduce the organic compound to glucose monomer. So dia akan menurunkan organic compound tu kepada glucose. Kemudian glucose monomer will condense to form a starch molecule. So starch granule will store in the stroma of the chloroplast. So disimpan sekejap dekat stroma dalam chloroplast tu sebelum diangkut oleh fluid pergi ke bahagian-bahagian tumbuhan. Okey, jadi ini adalah light independent reaction. Light independent reaction bermaksud proses yang tidak memerlukan cahaya. Ada pun tak apa, tak ada cahaya pun dia berlaku juga. Tapi kalau light dependent reaction mesti kena ada cahaya, baru dia boleh berlaku. Ini adalah this is a chemical reaction for photosynthesis. Ini water plus with carbon dioxide, 12 molecule of water, combine we react with the 6 molecule of carbon dioxide by using light energy and chlorophyll, we produce a glucose plus 6 molecule oxygen and 6 molecule of water. This is a chemical reaction for photosynthesis. This is a comparison between light dependent and light independent reaction in photosynthesis. So the similarities, both are catalyzed by enzyme, both take place in chloroplast. But the differences, actually light dependent reaction produce ATP, but light independent reaction use ATP. And then for light dependent reaction, the reaction substance is use water. But for the light independent reaction, the reaction substance is carbon dioxide. And then the product for the light dependent reaction is oxygen and water, while light independent reaction, the product is glucose. Okay, for the light dependent reaction, site for the reaction is in tilakot, while in the light independent reaction, site of the reaction in stroma. And then the last one, light dependent reaction involve photolysis of water, while the light independent reaction involve reduction of carbon dioxide. Okay, this is the environmental factor that affect the rate of photosynthesis. Actually, for photosynthesis, there are 4 factor influence. The first one is carbon dioxide concentration, which is the increase in carbon dioxide concentration will increase the photosynthesis rate as long as there are no other limiting factor. So the limiting factor such as surrounding temperature, light intensity will limit the rate of photosynthesis. And then at P, as you can see the graph, at P, photosynthesis rate is constant. So the concentration of carbon dioxide increase after P, so the rate of photosynthesis remain unchanged. So this is due to the light intensity becoming the limiting factor. Carbon dioxide banyak, tapi mungkin kerana kekurangan ataupun surrounding temperature yang tidak sesuai ataupun terlalu tinggi dan juga cahaya yang kurang menyebabkan graf ni menjadi mendatar. Itu dimaksudkan dengan limiting factor. Second factor is light intensity. So actually light needed in the light dependent reaction. cahaya sangat perlu dalam light dependent reaction. So if the concentration of carbon dioxide and temperature are constant, so the rate of photosynthesis will increase until it reach its maximum point at noon. Okay, so graph 1 show you the rate of photosynthesis increase with the increase of light intensity until it reach a light saturation point at P. Okay, after point P, the increase in light intensity is no longer increase the rate of photosynthesis because limiting by other factor such as temperature and carbon dioxide concentration. And then for the graph 2 shows when the concentration of carbon dioxide in the environment is increased to 0.13%. So the rate of photosynthesis also increase. Jadi cahaya banyak, tapi kalau carbon dioxide kurang, so dia punya graf pun akan mendatar. So carbon dioxide sebagai limiting factor. Itu sebagai contoh. Okay, number 3 is temperature. So the reaction in photosynthesis are catalyzed by enzyme. So changes of the surrounding temperature will affect the enzyme activity and also the rate of photosynthesis. So the optimal temperature is different for different plant. So setiap tumbuhan ni dia mempunyai optimal temperature yang berbeza-beza. Ada setengahnya perlukan temperature yang rendah. Ada setengahnya perlukan temperature yang tinggi. Terlalu tinggi akan menyebabkan enzim akan denature. Enzim denature, maka photosynthesis pun akan berhenti. Okay. So mostly optimal temperature untuk tumbuh-tumbuhan adalah di antara 25 darjah Celsius hingga 30 darjah Celsius. Beyond 30 degree Celsius, apa yang berlaku? Enzim akan denature. Photosynthesis enzim denature, maka photosynthesis process will stop. Kalau rendah daripada tu, photosynthesis berlaku tapi lambat. Okay, and then the effect of different light intensity and light color on the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, so sebenarnya kita pun ada belajar dulu-dulu kan, light spectrum. Tapi kita belajar warna pelangi. Okay, sebenarnya dalam cahaya yang kita nampak tu, okay, light spectrum actually consist of 7 color in certain sequence. Ada warna violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Warna pelangi lah 7 color. Dan setiap warna ini mempunyai wavelength yang berbeza-beza. So the rate of photosynthesis is highest in red and blue light. And then because of what? Because all the red light is absorbed by chlorophyll. And then the blue light is absorbed by carotenoid pigment before it transfer to the chlorophyll. And then these two light have enough amount energy to excite the electron in the light dependent reaction. Paling banyak diserap adalah warna merah dan warna biru. Warna merah diserap oleh chlorophyll, manakala warna biru diserap oleh carotenoid pigment untuk buat fotosintesis. Okay, the last subtopic is about compensation point. Okay, compensation point is the rate of photosynthesis is same with the rate of respiration. So kamu kena ingat fotosintesis, tumbuh-tumbuhan bukan setakat membuat fotosintesis, dia juga buat respiration. Jadi dua-dua proses ini dilakukan oleh tumbuh-tumbuhan. Kalau kita buat respiration, kita tak buat fotosintesis. So glucose produced in photosynthesis will use in the respiration of plant. So when the light intensity continue to increase beyond the compensation point, the rate of photosynthesis become faster compared to the rate of respiration. Okey, kita tengok graf ni. Okey, tempat yang dilabelkan sebagai compensation point, di situ rate of photosynthesis adalah sama dengan rate of respiration. Bermaksud banyak mana glukos yang dihasilkan semasa proses fotosintesis akan digunakan semuanya untuk buat respiration. Begitu juga banyak mana karbon dioksida dihasilkan masa respiration, semuanya akan digunakan untuk buat fotosintesis. Kalau tak cukup, baru tumbuh-tumbuhan tu akan ambil karbon dioksida daripada luar, daripada surrounding. Okay. Alright, and then at this time, carbon dioxide need to be absorbed from the atmosphere to compensate the rate of its usage in photosynthesis. So at the same time, the rate of glucose production will exceed the rate of glucose usage, where the excess glucose is stored in the form of starch by the plant. Okay, semakin cahaya semakin light intensity semakin meningkatlah proses fotosintesis, semakin banyaklah karbon dioksida perlu diserap, maka semakin banyaklah hasil daripada proses fotosintesis itu dihasilkan, iaitu glukos. Okay. Kalau waktu awal ni low light intensity, okay, kurang penyerapan karbon dioksida, okay, and then kurang penghasilan glukos. Net loss in glucose. Glucose used in respiration is faster than glucose produced. Waktu ini kan cahaya kurang, fotosintesis pun kurang. Bila fotosintesis kuranglah penghasilan glukos. Waktu light intensity rendah. Okay, and then comparison between photosynthesis and respiration in plant. The similarities, both processes take place in living organisms, and then both processes involve the uptake and release of gases. Itu adalah similarities between photosynthesis dengan respiration. But differences, there are 9 differences between photosynthesis and respiration. So photosynthesis, the organism involved is green plant and photosynthetic bacteria, but respiration all living organism. And then for photosynthesis happen in the cell which is containing chlorophyll, but in respiration all cell will undergo respiration. And then for the photosynthesis, actually it is an anabolism process happen, which is the synthesis of glucose using carbon dioxide and water. Anabolism ni adalah proses untuk menghasilkan daripada simple substance menjadi satu bahan yang kompleks. Itu kita panggil sebagai anabolism process. Manakala respiration is a catabolism process happen, which is the breakdown of glucose to produce energy. Catabolism bermaksud proses daripada benda yang kompleks dipecahkan menjadi simple substance. Itu catabolism. Okey, untuk fotosintesis berlaku dalam kloroplas, manakala respiration berlaku dalam mitochondria. And then photosynthesis memerlukan carbon dioxide and water, while respiration is use oxygen and glucose. And then photosynthesis, the product is glucose, while respiration, the product is energy. And then byproduct bermaksud produk sampingan. Untuk fotosintesis, dia menghasilkan oksigen and water, while respiration menghasilkan carbon dioxide and water. Okay, for photosynthesis, light energy is absorbed and converted into chemical energy, while in respiration, chemical energy is converted to the ATP and heat energy is released. And then the last one, light equipment. Photosynthesis need light, while respiration does not need light. Okay, so that's all for this topic. So hopefully all of you able to understand about the concept in this chapter 2, leaf structure and function. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. Okay, see you in the next class. Thank you. Bye.